Hi everyone, my name's Amber McLeod and I'm one of the lecturers here at Monash, and an area I'm really interested in is the role of ICT in education. So for this lecture I'm just going to talk briefly about how and why ICT could be used when teaching literacy. A lot of people see ICT in schools as a bit of a distraction and they think, well, I learned to read and write without computers or tablets, so maybe kids would be better off if they didn't have access to digital technologies at school. So the first reason it is important in school is that digital literacy is part of a basic education. It's really just literacy. You've probably heard of the terms multiliteracy and new literacy, which describe digital literacy as just one facet of literacy. It's hard to think of many jobs where you aren't required to use digital technologies. Farmers use them quite extensively. Even if you're a cleaner, you probably have to fill in an online timesheet. It's just expected these days that everyone knows how to use computers, certainly school leavers. And look at this quote from the Department of Health. Digital interactions have now been mandated as the primary form of interaction for 80% of government services by 2017. Well, that's now. So if you've ever had to call Centrelink or Medicare and you've been stuck going through menus and being on hold for ages, now you know why. The government expects that everyone will just access the information online. And think of us at Monash. Moodle, email, the library website, the current student pages. Monash has put so much information online. And if you don't have the digital literacy to find the information you need, then you're in trouble. So it really is a basic literacy. And this idea that just because students have grown up with computers, that they're digital natives, that they don't need to be taught, that they'll just know, well, that isn't true at all. There have been lots of studies debunking this idea. And that idea originally came from Prensky. Another reason digital technologies are important to include in education are that in the past we could be confident that we were preparing students for the world outside school. We were giving them the skills to get jobs and we knew what those jobs were. We knew what it meant to be an accountant, a taxi driver, a doctor, a mechanic, but all those jobs have been changing drastically because of ICT. So because of all the computer systems in cars now, when you take your car to be serviced, the mechanics are not just changing the oil and the filters. They have to hook the car up to a computer and then be able to understand all the data that comes out of it, to analyse it, to program it. And so many jobs are disappearing. Just think about supermarkets as really obvious ones. When you go to the supermarket now, do you line up to be served by one of the real people or do you use the machine to do the checkout yourself? Now, that's one we all see, and some people, and I'm one of them, would rather line up and take an extra 5 minutes to get through the checkout because I can see that jobs are disappearing. But there are so many behind-the-scenes jobs that are also disappearing that we don't know about. And at the same time, new jobs are appearing. Except, how do we know what the new jobs will be in 20 years? We have no idea. We don't really know what the jobs of the future will be. So instead, what we're concentrating on are those transferable skills. How can we make our students into good problem solvers, critical thinkers, creative people? These pictures I'm showing you are from the Foundation for Young Australians. After viewing 4.2 million Australian job advertisements over 3 years, they concluded that the demand from employers for these skills had really risen. In 3 years, there was a 212% increase in demand for digital literacy. ICT has the potential to be a rich and really valuable resource for literacy teachers. It provides opportunities that enhance effective communication and can develop critical literacy skills. So let me explain why. It means students can have more authentic tasks. The work they create can be shared to a wider audience and they can receive comments and communicate with the school community or sometimes even outside the school community. If you know you're creating a story that all your friends and parents will see, then there's a bit more motivation than just having your teacher as the audience. It also means that your class has the opportunity to actually interact with the authors of the books you're reading. The author then becomes someone the students can see themselves as, not some distant figure that they have nothing in common with. You can watch videos of the authors, email them, read their blogs, follow them on Twitter, maybe even have an online chat with them. Also, ICT allows students to create texts that they couldn't before. Even primary kids can now create their own web pages, blogs, publish their own books, make their own animations, their own podcasts, their own films. These are all amazing texts, and the literacy aspects involved in these genres include sound, movement, visual effects. Could you make a film 20 years ago? Of course you could, but you needed specialised skills and very expensive equipment, and it would have taken a long time. Now you can do the same thing on your iPad in just a few minutes. So these affordances of technology mean that students will often be more engaged and engaged on a deeper level than they were in the past. And the research tells us that when you teach ICT along with other areas of the curriculum, so when they're integrated, then this is a really successful way of teaching ICT. The digital technology strand is new to the Victorian curriculum and schools had to include it by the end of 2016. So schools are still trying to figure out how to do this. Some are integrating it into the existing curriculum in a way I'm about to describe, and others are teaching it as a separate subject like art or PE, but I think integrating it is the best way to go. So here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. This was an English project. Okay, this was high school, but look where they went with this one project. They spread it out across a number of disciplines because they had access to ICT. So digital literacy is a basic literacy. It helps students develop transferable skills, and it can also engage students in English so that they can improve writing, reading, speaking, listening and other literacy skills. So the advantages of using ICT are that it can be used to motivate students to complete tasks they would otherwise avoid. It allows for the linking of real-world issues to learning, and it allows students to compose, respond to and publish ideas in a variety of forms. This also increases opportunities for interaction, for collaboration, critical thinking and creativity. Now let's look at how ICT is included in the curriculum. So as I said, the Victorian curriculum has a digital technology strand, and then in the English curriculum, digital texts are also referred to. So let's start by looking at the English curriculum for F2 and where digital texts are mentioned, and then we'll discuss some things you could try. So this is the English curriculum for foundation level. It says, understand concepts about print and screen, including how books, film and simple digital texts work to know, and if you click on the example there, it says using a keyboard, mouse, scrolling, selecting icons and a drop-down menu. Now the icon one is the really interesting one for me here. If you look at Word or PowerPoint or something else, the icons are not always self-explanatory. For example, save is a floppy disk. Well, when was the last time you saw a floppy disk? When have you ever used a floppy disk? So these symbols do need to be explained to students before they can make meaning from them. And the other thing is that this needs to be taught explicitly. How many of you know what every single icon in Word, Excel or PowerPoint mean, or how to use them? Have you ever been through all the menus? This needs to be taught. Only some students will explore and figure it out for themselves. Others will never click on the icons unless they are explicitly told to. Here's the English curriculum for level 1, and there's the example. So use digital technologies to retell events. So how could you do that? You could record them using an iPad. You could use the trailers in iMovie. Kids really love those. You could create an avatar to tell the story. So there are lots of apps for that. Telegami is a good one. You could create an animation through coding. You could create it as a web page. You could do a choose your own adventure using PowerPoint. Or you could make your own digital book using PowerPoint. There are lots of options here. And no one is saying you need to know how to do all these things. Just pick one you like and use that one. Remember that you're teaching them transferable skills, not how to use 100 different programs. The apps and programs change so often, you can never keep up with them anyway. So just teach one well, and then when they encounter a similar one, they'll have some idea of how to tackle it. The other really important thing to remember is that you don't need to be an expert with ICT. That's one of the really great things about it. You can turn up in class and say, hey, let's use this app that I heard about to tell a story. I don't really know how to use it, but together I'm sure we can work it out. If you do this, then you're truly employing student-centered learning. The students need to collaborate with you and with each other to figure out how to use the technology. One student might figure out the first step and share it with the group. Another figures out the next step and so on. And I'd never give every child an iPad or a computer. I'd always get them to work in pairs or groups for this very reason. ICT can really promote communication and collaboration in this way. Plus, in this case, anyone can be an expert, not just the teacher, and students love to be in that position. So if we compare the English curriculum with the content from the digital technology strand, you can see the parts that relate pretty clearly to English. So for example, in F2, students need to include text, images, audio and video in creative ways to create meaning. So that relates beautifully to retelling a story. And of course, if you were going to publish a story, most probably it would only be to the school community. You might want to explain why it's only to them. You could talk about creating avatars. Telegami, as I said, is a good one, instead of putting your face up on video, and why you might want to do that. Levels 3 and 4 in English don't have any specific mention of digital texts, but if you look at this descriptor from the digital technology strand, you can see that summarising facts to deduce conclusions is in there. Well, that's certainly something you could do in English when you're analysing and evaluating texts. And if you're going to record a solution to a problem using text and diagrams, well, of course that relates to English. But the most obvious one is the last part there, create interactive adventures that involve user choice. So that could be a choose your own adventure PowerPoint or guessing games, which you could also do in PowerPoint. And of course, there are other programs you could use for that, but there's nothing wrong with good old PowerPoint. The next time digital texts are mentioned explicitly in the English curriculum is level 5. This one really lends itself to web pages, of course, and many teachers will get their students to use web pages and make their own web pages, but hyperlinks can be in anything. PowerPoint is one that immediately comes to mind for me. Another in level 5 is this one. This is really important. So if you search for information on the internet, how do you know whether the information is reliable? How do you know if it will give you the information you need? So there are lots of websites you can use for this, which are fake websites to help students exercise their critical thinking skills. So have a look at this really good one on tree octopuses. Level 6 mentions digital text twice, but when you look at the elaborations, there's nothing there that's particularly about digital text. The descriptors describe all text, and digital text is just one that's included as one type of text. So for levels 5 and 6 in the digital technology strand, you have working collaboratively, so working in groups. Of course, you'd be doing that in English. And there's the safety stuff again, which you'd be covering whenever the kids are online. But the final one, again, is talking about games, quizzes, interactive stories and animations. So you can see that in the English curriculum and also in the digital technology strands, there are lots of things that can be covered with digital storytelling. So now let's have a look at some of the apps, and then I'll walk you through how you could use PowerPoint to create a digital story. This first app is called Chatterpix. It's pretty good. So you just take a photo of anything. It could be a person or something else. You draw a little mouth on it, and then you record yourself speaking. And then you can put all kinds of bling on it, like hats and borders, and you can even put text on it as well. This one's pretty good.
Hi everyone. I hope you're learning a lot about IT and education.
Puppet Pals is another good one. For this, you choose your characters, you choose the background, you choose props in there, and then when you click record, as you move them around with your fingers and speak, everything is recorded, and then you can play it back again. This is another good one that you can record, that you can save to your picture, your photo roll on your iPad, and then email it to yourself and use it in something else if you want to, or use it in iMovie, for example.
Wiggly Wog was very worried. He went to go and get the help of his grandmother. Ah! And she said, "Don't worry, I'll save you." And she moved him out to a lovely place with lots of grass. Goodbye. And along came a lovely princess. "Hello, would you like to be my squirrel?" "Yay, I'll be a squirrel."
So here's another great way to make an avatar with this app called Telegami, which I mentioned before. So you can click on that little message button there and record yourself speaking for 30 seconds. You can also type something and a computer voice will read it out for you. You can customize the avatar and change gender, hair color, clothes, and so on. You can change their mood, so it can be happy or angry or sad, and you can change their backgrounds as well. There are some free backgrounds you can choose from, and you can also take a picture or use a picture from your camera roll. And then finally, you just save it to your camera roll on your iPad, and you can email it to yourself if you want to. So it's another pretty good thing that you could use with your students to retell a story in a digital way.
Hi everybody, this is Telegami. It's a pretty cool way to make an avatar, isn't it?
And the last one I've got here is sock puppets. It's very similar to the last one. You just choose your characters, a background, any props that you need, and then when you click on record, as you move things around with your fingers and speak, everything is recorded, and then you can play it back again, and they make your voice change into little sort of puppet noise voices. The only problem with this one is that you can't save it to your camera roll, so you can't export it, but you can use it on your
So
iPad.
to begin with, let's look at how you might make a choose your own adventure story. So you can see that on your first slide, you're going to have the start of your story, and then you'll put in 2 buttons there. So does he turn left or does he turn right? And then on your second and third slides, you'll have left, and then you'll continue the story as if you turned left, and on the third slide, right, as if you turned right. And the way you make it work is that after you've made your buttons, so we'll just make the buttons now, and we want them to look pretty, so we get into the formatting, give them a bit of style, maybe use the shape effects, so it makes it look a bit more like a button when it's raised like that, so we can do that. And then you hyperlink them. So I'll just do the left one first. Insert, hyperlink. And then you see on the side it says place in this document. You want slide number 2. For this one, you want slide number 3. Okay, so then when we play it, if you click on right, it goes straight to slide number 3, which was right. If you click on left, it goes straight to that one. And then, of course, a quiz would work exactly the same way. So just say we made a quiz, and this one, we'll just make this one a true or false, but you can have as many answers as you want. It could be, you know, a multiple choice or something. Just say we've got true and false here, and obviously we make these ones true and false. Then you might say, well done, next question. Oh, no, actually we could put a button in for that. So then you can put a button for the next question. And the next question you might put on slide number 4, and so therefore you hyperlink this one to slide number 4. Okay, so this is hyperlinking, and you can certainly use these to make a digital story. All right, now, digital storybook. So we start off with a slide, we get a bit of a background going here. This is what we want our story to look like. Give it the second page. Okay, there's our backgrounds. Obviously, you don't want any white space from the outside because it's supposed to be a book. Now, we're going to insert a page curl here. And you'll see the one I've got here, excuse me, it has solid colour of black. I'll show you why that's important in a moment. Just make sure this is actually at the bottom. So I'll minimise this to the right size, and then that black part there, I can get rid of that. So if I go to colour, down the bottom there, set transparent colour, and then click on it, it's gone. So it really looks like a page curl, right? So that's pretty good. Now you notice here we've got on mouse click, get rid of that. We don't want to turn this page on the mouse click, we want it to turn when we click on that page curl. So guess what? We hyperlink it just like we did before. And then we're going to make sure that the second one has the transition that looks like a page curl. Aha! How's that? Pretty cool. All right, now let's put some characters in and animate them. So we'll put a little robot in. So there's our robot. Now we want our robot to walk onto the page. So how can we do that? So you've probably seen these animations before, but did you notice the motion paths? So there's lots of different motion paths there. I think we'll pick the zigzag. So we put in zigzag and then we drag it across to where we want it to end. So it's coming in off the screen. And then on the side here, this is a bit like coding here. We don't want it to start with a mouse click, we want it to start sort of straight away. And you'll see I put some music in there as well that starts straight away. We do it slowly so it looks like it's walking. We'll give it a little bit of a delay, maybe 1 second delay so it doesn't happen immediately. And we'll see what happens with that one. Ah, yes, there he goes, walking on. Okay, and then we might want him to say something. So you can record sound, of course. So you see at the top there, audio, it says record sound, and you can record it. But let's put in a little speech bubble. And just make it big enough to see. All right, hi everyone, welcome to my book. Right, and then on the second page, we'll put him in, and we'll put his friend in as well. Let's just move them off the screen. Stick together. So we'll put this guy back in the middle, and now we want his friend to walk on. So we'll do the same thing, motion path. What will we use this time? He just walks straight on, right? No, left, to come straight on. And you drag him across to where you want him to be. And let's get these two to talk to each other. So we want it to start immediately, so we say start with previous. So he will come on straight away. And we want it to be fairly slow. Slow is usually the best one. And we'll give it a little bit of a delay before it starts. Let's see how this goes. Oh, yes, there he goes. Hello. So now let's get them to talk. So we insert some shapes that look like speech bubbles and things. Let's get them thinking. You can say, who's this? I wonder who that is. And this speech bubble, we want that to happen. We go across to the side there. We want it to happen after the picture before. So it'll come on and then it'll say, who is this? And we need to add animation. Do you see how I clicked on that add animation up the top? If you just click on a different animation, it will cancel out the first one. So you must use that add. And this will just make the speech bubble disappear after a couple of seconds. There we go. And now, what else? We want the other guy to say something, don't we? So let's put in his speech bubble. Let's make his one green. Oh no, orange. Hi, my name is Al. Let's call him Al. Oops, make it bigger. Put it in the right place. Now, this one, we're going to get this one to appear when somebody clicks on the person. So it appears and then we make it disappear after a couple of seconds. We don't want it to be there forever. And we'll give it a bit of a delay so they can read it. So it'll appear and then it'll disappear, yep. But we want it to make it happen when you click on Al. So we go to triggers. And you see up the top there it says that he's called picture 5. So start it when we click on picture 5. All right, so let's have a look at the whole thing. Ta-da, here comes the robot. Hi everyone, welcome to my book. And then you can click everywhere and nothing will happen. It's not until you click on that curl that it will happen. And then comes Al. Oh, I wonder who that is. And only when I click on him will he say, hi, my name is Al. And then it will disappear. So you can imagine you could do a whole lot of animation using that, couldn't you? You could make your own digital books. So it's pretty snazzy, I think, doing something like that. Okay, so that's all.